Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Losing a farm is not like losing any other business. It can't come back. That's why the lack of urgency from the government, the lack of attention to detail, the lack of long-term planning, it's not on. You deserve better than that. You deserve a government that listens, that heeds early warnings, that shows the level of ambition needed to tackle the challenges you face.
Well, that's Prime Minister Keir Starmer speaking at the National Farmers Union conference all the way back in 2023. Well, last year he was welcomed by the rural community. Today he's facing their anger. Hello, you're listening to Bloomberg UK Politics. I'm Yuan Potts.
And I'm Caroline Hepker. Well, you might not know this, but Keir Starmer's first job was on a farm. We learnt at that event. According to the Prime Minister, as a 14-year-old, he worked picking up stones in a field on a farm on the Surrey-Kent border. Now, all these years later, though, he finds himself at odds with the rural communities who are protesting against the government's inheritance tax plans.
I don't know if you've seen the pictures, Caroline, but it's really quite something. Tractors brandishing the Union Jack, flanked by the Palace of Westminster as demonstrations got underway this morning. Farmers are furious at the Chancellor's budget plans imposing a 20% inheritance tax on farms worth more than £1 million. The National Farmers Union say that 3/4 of commercial farms will be hit by the changes, but the Treasury estimates just 500 farms a year will be affected, and farmers will still be eligible for the gifting rule, which allows everyone to pass assets without inheritance tax more than 7 years before their death.
Well, farmers are also warning about the tractor tax, as they've dubbed it, that will see the country, quote, sleepwalking into food shortages. Of course, the budget did see sweeping tax changes, including the employers' national insurance increase that has hit a lot of industries. The £40 billion total increase in taxes in the budget from Rachel Reeves is the biggest since 1993. So farmers not alone in being asked to pay more.
Well, joining us now on the programme, the Vice President of the National Farmers Union, Rachel Hallos. Rachel, why are farmers so angry about this?
I was at that conference when Keir Starmer spoke those words, and I guess that's why they're angry. This is a cumulative effect. For a number of years now, there's been some very strange policy coming out of government. We're not quite sure what is wanted from us. We're not quite sure what is expected from us. We produce food in this country. And Keir Starmer stood in front of us all and he turned around and said, believe in me. I'm here for you. I'm going to give you stability. This is what this party will do. And let's be honest, the rural vote listened. They believed. We feel betrayed. To be very honest about this, that's how we feel. We feel betrayed. And you know, the National Farmers Union has been operating for over 100 years, and I don't think there has been this strength of feeling amongst our membership about sheer anger, nor with the wider food supply chain.
Yeah, OK. Farmers have faced a lot of very difficult years, though. I'm interested to hear you put it so forcefully. You know, there's been climate change and climate unpredictability and a huge jump in fuel costs and loads of changing legislation. Why is it the inheritance tax issue that has really got people out, you know, on the streets?
I think it's the final thing. It's the straw that broke the camel's back. It's been this cumulative approach, but farmers, they keep their heads down, they've got the farm, they've got their land, they've got their business, we're multi-generational. Quite often you've got grandparents, parents and children working together. And as long as they have that, it's okay, we will face whatever we need to face, whether it's climate change, whether it's different government policy, whether it's fluctuations in global markets. This is the one that took that protection away. This is the one that has made people go, enough. We're not having this. And that is it's that final nail in the coffin, if you like, that people have just gone, we're not having this anymore. We're tired of having to just deal with whatever's being thrust in front of us. No, you're going to listen to us. We don't believe what you're saying. You need to listen to the experts.
How many farmers, though, are really going to be affected? Because there's a big debate about this now. I mean, the NFU and others are putting forward, potentially 70,000, which is a big number. The Treasury says 500 estates. And if you look at the data from HMRC, the tax collectors, obviously, 462 farms were valued above £1 million in 2021, 2022. So, it could end up affecting very few people.
We disagree. This is where it gets interesting, and this is where Treasury figures don't appear to match up with DEFRA, the Departments for Food and Rural Affairs figures. They don't add up. And when we speak to other people, if you like, agricultural tax experts, they're turning around and saying, this doesn't make sense. We've looked at our clients, we've looked at our books, and we believe anywhere between 70 and 80% of our clients will be affected like this. So there is something not right somewhere. So all we're turning around and saying is, if you're going to do this, make sure that it affects the right people. And actually, what you're doing is you are actually affecting the people, those working businesses that are asset-rich, cash-poor, which means that the others, those people, the corporates that are coming in buying up land, which is happening on a global scale, they're not going to be touched by this.
Rachel, it is true, though, that farmers do get a fairly good deal with taxes, don't they? Paul Johnson at the widely respected Institute for Fiscal Studies says that farmers are much better off than other groups. The tax relief hasn't always existed, has it? And the government is not proposing to get rid of the tax relief. It's just cutting it in half.
The reality is that land has increased in value. Tractors have increased in value. Buildings have increased in value, but the return from that increase in value has not. So we have the third cheapest food in the world, the cheapest food in Western Europe. So if you want us to pay more tax, and bear in mind farmers do already pay tax through, and they do pay national insurance, they do pay tax on their businesses anyway. If you want us to be able to continue to produce food, deliver environmental goods, in other words, be there in the countryside, how are we going to do that on the returns that we're getting on our investments? So are we going to turn around and say, do we need to increase the price of food? What government wants that? So who's going to make up the difference in between?
Yeah. No, and I hear you on the farmland point. That feels very familiar to us in terms of fiscal drag, people being dragged into the tax bracket. But look, what do you want from government? Steve Reed, the Environment Secretary, has defended government policy, saying the issue is with how the Conservatives left the public finances. And to be fair, a lot of different groups are having to pay more tax or will have to pay more tax. What do you want government to do? Do you really think that Starmer and Reeves will backtrack or tweak somehow?
There's two things there. Number one, Labour are blaming the Conservative government for the fiscal situation. The Conservative government blamed the previous Labour government for the fiscal situation. So there's a common theme going on there. What we are asking government is actually just to take a breath. Speak to the experts who understand this. Try and understand the economics of agriculture. They're the same globally. Quite often farmers are cash-rich, asset-rich, cash-poor, and they don't have access to that money to prepare for their future.
But Rachel, I'm going to press you on that point. Taking a breath, that is asking for change. That is asking for change to the budget, surely.
Of course we want change to the budget. There are people, well, I'll give you an example. A man stood in front of me last week. I was speaking to a load of farmers. He stood in front of me last week and he said he went to bed he went to bed on the Tuesday prior to the budget, and all the advice had been that he should keep the farm in his name until death. The budget happened, and on Thursday morning he woke up knowing full well that his sons that he'd encouraged to join him in the business would now be landed in debt for the rest of their life to pay off inheritance tax. How does he find the time to resolve this issue so that that land can be passed on to his sons so that they can continue to produce food? So we're asking government to take breath, to actually speak to the experts, to actually let's come up with a really good policy that ensures that they can get the returns from tax revenue and that farmers can continue doing what they're doing. The family working farm, these are working people that government suddenly doesn't seem to believe that farmers are working people, that those family farms can actually stay in place and produce food for the nation.
Rachel, there is a problem, though, isn't there, with very rich people? I'm thinking of the likes of James Dyson buying huge tracts of land and using it for tax planning. You do accept that perhaps there should be some changes to tax it better.
So let's go for them. Yeah, let's go for them.
How would you do that?
Let's look after the working family farm, because that is what you would do. You would have a grown-up conversation. We thought the grown-ups were in the room when the Labour Party came in, and they're clearly not. We would have a grown-up conversation, and if they don't want to have it with the NFU, go and speak to agricultural tax experts and actually find out what is it that you actually want to do. What do you want out of this policy? Because when Tom Bradshaw, our president, went to the Treasury and asked them that question, they couldn't answer it.
Yeah.
To have a grown-up conversation with the experts, let's come up with a policy that actually gets them the revenue that they need from those big corporate buyers, but looks after the working family farm that produces the food for the country.
And what I want to know, and also from you, is what you think about the listing of farmland, because according to Bloomberg data, listing for farmland in the UK is up 23% from a year ago. Yeah. So basically, does this increase the sell-off of agricultural land in the UK? I mean, it was 2023 was the most active year for institutional investment into farmland in the UK.
And I think that is another part of that straw that broke the camel's back. These are companies. Everybody wants land. Everybody wants land, whether it's for infrastructure, whether it's for building homes, whether it's for biodiversity net gain, whether it's for carbon capture. That's where we're confused. What do you want from us as farmers? There is only so much land in the United Kingdom. There is only so much land in the world. So somebody somewhere is going to have to start making some very serious decisions. There is a growing population. We need to be able to feed those people efficiently with nutritious food. How do we make that work when everybody else is pushing land prices up because they want to deliver B&G, they want to deliver nutrient neutrality? We should all be coming together and coming up with a plan so we can do all those things with that land.
Rachel, I just want to have a quick final question. At the beginning, you talked about betrayal of the government having spoken to you and promised good things to you before they won the election. What do you ascribe to this change in the budget? Is it simply that Labour doesn't listen to rural communities, or do you think it is something else?
If I'm speaking from my own personal opinion, I feel disappointed. They had the rural vote. For the first time, the Labour Party had the rural vote in the palm of their hand. And I can promise you right now, they've lost it. They've lost the room. And there was so much that could have been delivered by the rural community. All those things that I just talked about, environmental goods, producing food, work efficiently, get better at what we do, every single one of us, to use that finite amount of land that we have as a nation. And I genuinely believe they've thrown it away. And it's not just my generation, it's my children's generation that will remember them for this. And that's the saddest thing in all this. And that's the betrayal.
Rachel, thank you so much for being with us. A really difficult day, and I think we understand your points much more clearly as the National Farmers Union and farmers are protesting in London today. Rachel Hallos is the Vice President of the National Farmers Union. As you say, not often that you see the tractors in front of Parliament. Very common in Europe, not so much here in the UK. So this does feel like quite a sea change.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. If you look at the polling, farmers are pretty popular. People have an attachment to the countryside and to farming. And of course, I mean, food is important, of course, to all of us. And the people who produce it hold, a special place in many people's hearts. So I think it's a difficult battle for the government. Yeah,
absolutely. England's green and pleasant land, of course. That's it from us for today. If you like the programme, don't forget to subscribe and give it 5 stars so that other people can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify or wherever you listen.
This episode was produced by Tiwa Adebayo and our audio engineer was Sean Gostamakia. I'm Yuan Potts.
And I'm Caroline Hepker, and we'll be back with more tomorrow. This is Bloomberg.
Bloomberg UK Politics. Listen weekdays at noon on DAB Digital Radio in London.